what's up? See you back in the park, yeah?
Come on.
All right, we're going to start a mini out corner, just because we haven't been here for 2 years. Obviously, you got the main man Shaka around the place, you know what I mean? But we're going to start something like, I guess like, rough topic, how best to protect black women, right? And how to make black women feel safe, and do black women feel safe, right? And this is a topic that's circling around on the internet and stuff. So we're talking about how to chop up, how do we do it, what is the things that we're missing, are we ignoring things, are we not ignoring things, is it more complex than some people are saying? There's a topic, how best to protect black women, right? So, yeah, I think, I was going to say like, there's a lot of like pages going around by certain women feel like they've been abused, and when they've been abused, they might go out and tell people and stuff, and they don't feel protected. So it's like, okay, or maybe people not listening to them, or maybe people don't come back straight away. And we're talking more so within the community, not out of the community, within the community. I don't know if there's any truth to that. Do you feel there's any truth to that? Is it misunderstood?
There's definitely truth to it. Right. I think that, first of all, we have to. Malcolm X said that the most disrespected person,
yes,
and the most unprotected,
yes,
is the black woman.
Yeah.
And when he said that, that was a call to us as black men in terms of our failures to provide enough protection for the women in our community. And we can't justify ourselves as men when our women are under attack, especially if they're under attack from us.
Within
by us, by us, right? That's what I'm saying. So, and we can't properly protect them if we can't if we can't protect them from each other, right? And so, to me, the broader context for it is a breakdown in systems of manhood, right? Because when we have proper manhood, we're taught how to relate to ourselves, to each other, and to women, right? You know what I'm saying? And so that breakdown has resulted in a lack of accountability, and so a lot of men are getting away with a lot of abusive behaviour.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of it is happening to girls. Young girls, like in the community. Right. And so you may not see the full outcome of that until they're adults. And when that happens, it's gonna manifest itself in functional as well as dysfunctional ways that are either gonna try to heal, or in the process of trying to heal are gonna even exacerbate the problem in and of itself. And I think that where we was talking before we got on camera is this is an issue that as men we need to be seen to be speaking about more publicly as black men, and actively trying to resolve.
Yeah, I agree. That's why we're doing this, right? And that's the thing. I think sometimes like abuse happens. It happens a long time. No one says anything, and then that abuser abuses someone else, and then when they're older, they come forward and say I was abused many years ago, and then one person comes forward, there's a legacy, and people say, okay, I'm going to come forward. That's what we're seeing today. So, but when they say that, when they first say they've been abused, how we as black men respond is key. We have to make them feel that we're on the side of the victim, right? I think there has been a fear, a small fear sometimes, that sometimes it actually might be, say a lie, right? Certain abuse might actually not be true, right? In a small percentage.
Yeah, and that is a small potential. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, that is
it's a small potential.
But that's blown up to the reason why certain black men, whatever, can't come forward.
I agree.
We need evidence to know that this man does that. Right? So what I say is, before we even say about evidence, how are we talking to the women to make them feel secure? No matter what happens, we're on their side, and we're going to do what we need to do to make them feel better. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think this is what we kind of need to speak to the women about, I guess, right? But it's a very touchy
it's a touchy subject,
very.
And as you were saying offline, it's touchy on so many different lines. As black men, we are used to being labelled as predators. And so when issues come up, and it's superimposed as a generalization on black men, a lot of us react negatively, because we're used to having our characters demonized and stereotyped, and that's a real thing. I don't want to minimize that psychology because it's real. Yeah, and it should be factored in. At the same time, as I'm saying, that we can't qualify and justify ourselves as as men, yeah, when if our sisters feel unprotected, whether that's real or perceived, lack of protection. So there's two levels for me. The first level is, like I tell you, on the level of victims, yeah, and how we address and deal with women who have been victimized. The second level goes beyond just the individuals, perpetrators and victims, but to like the social conditioning. It's like, one is like, I don't know, addressing the issue, and the other one is preventing the issue from occurring in the first place. This what I'm saying?
Prevention, right?
Yeah.
How do this thing is like? How do you go out prevent? Because a lot of these abuse that I'm reviewing happens in like dysfunctional situations where maybe fathers isn't around, or they go to certain kind of clubs, or they don't have a house, or they're left alone with cousins, and that's things happen inside. So how do we sort that out? What is the strategy, I guess, to sort that out? Because there's so many.
It's a complex one.
It is very complex.
Yeah,
right?
it's complex, and I think there are no simple solutions. No. On the one level, I feel like it requires some level of study. Yeah, like from a sociological point of view, to look at where these issues are coming from, where they lie and how they manifest themselves. Because there isn't, and not to minimize the issue in terms of the sisters there, but some of the pushback that we're seeing comes from the idea that a lot of men are also abused by men, but also by women. A lot of men that I know lost their virginity to women that were significantly older than them.
Yeah, that is a good argument.
Right? That's what I'm saying. So, but the problem is that instead of bringing these varying different elements of the issue together to properly solve them, what we're seeing is it manifesting in a gender war online, whereby we're just attacking each other.
That's what we want solutions for.
Right.
We definitely don't want to see
and so I'm saying that part of it is we have to take the conversation outside of gender war.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we have to take the conversation of outside of addressing black men addressing each other about the protection of black women in our communities who are abused by other black men is not a condemnation of black men and manhood, but a call for us to really manifest the best of ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to really understand that. Yeah. And so if we put it in that context, we get out of the attack mentality in terms of us as men, but more into the protection mentality.
That's where I want to go.
Just what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? You get me? So go on.
But I think, once again, I think it starts in stages.
Yeah.
And the first stage is how we react to the claims.
To the claims. Yes.
So I think it's the step one, and I think I know people don't like doing the feeling.
No, I get what you're saying.
How a woman feels.
That's kind of what I'm saying. I'm saying because the reaction
Yes.
is often based upon the feeling of being attacked.
Yeah.
So, right. This is what I'm saying. So we have to take it outside of that context.
Yes.
So that and as man them, we have to be in a different level of consciousness so that we don't react in that consciousness.
And that's the hard thing because
it's a very hard thing to do.
That's the conditioning, right?
Very hard thing to do.
Yeah, that's the conditioning.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And I get, and it's like there's a talk now whereby it is being said that victims should be believed.
Okay.
Right? And a lot of men have problems with this idea, and I understand why. At the same time,
Tell me why. This is important.
The reason why is because one because of the possibility of dishonesty.
Of course.
Right? That's what I'm saying. Two, because again, as black men, a lot of us feel used to being labelled a certain way. And secondly, I feel like again it's a lot of this gender war dynamic. We have to be honest about the fact that the people that are dishonest in relation to being victims are minimal.
I want to say that's a very important.
It's minimal. Yeah. All forms of abuse, right?
But
it's minimal.
That doesn't flavour how we should react.
Of course,
if the average is lower, then we should be more compassionate.
We should be compassionate.
We understand there's going to be a percentage, and there's going to be a percentage where maybe revenge or anger for something
whatever.
Else.
But let's not use that as an excuse or as the justification for not showing compassion.
Could the sisters be perceiving that's what's happening?
There is definitely that feeling.
Right.
Yeah. In my conversations with sisters in my life and online, And I'll be honest with you, a lot of it is a lot of the online conversation is different to the real life conversation in my experience. Not all of it, but a lot of it. But I'm saying our compassion, the word that you use, needs to be at the forefront of our responses. Right? Just what I'm saying. Like, because wherever the details are, we don't know. And if a woman comes to us and says this, then the compassion should be our initial response.
The thing is,
that's the minimum.
a lot of, apart from men being abused by men themselves, right?
Yes.
We can't necessarily relate to how it is to be a woman.
No.
In that situation.
Yes.
And that's something that we have to really remember.
Yes.
That it's like it's to jump into a woman's body and imagine being around a man being abused by someone who's going to protect them.
Yes.
And then get enough courage to tell someone.
Yes.
And then them being belittled and not believed, wanting strong evidence.
Yes.
And then there's the feeling of how they feel like, is it their fault? Could have been, all that comes into the person's mind.
Yes.
So these are things we have to preconceive and try to work.
No, most definitely. And that's why compassion is the important word here.
But I think
the other thing though is that we also have to acknowledge that wherever the dynamics that are taking place, this is happening, and it's happening at a very significant level. Yeah, you see what I'm saying, right? So that level of understanding needs to be there first and foremost. The point I'm making is that as men, we need to acknowledge that there's a problem, right? And we need to acknowledge that there's a problem in terms of how we're socialized as men. Because we know, yeah, and a lot of men would seem to like to deny this in this era of manosphere, yeah, and whatever. But how we're socialized as men, in terms of how we relate to women, and the predatory tendencies, yeah, that are inculcated in us or encouraged in us in our adolescence, in terms of how we approach women or how we view women, sexually speaking, result in a lot of dysfunctional and destructive behavior. You see what I'm saying? We have to be honest about that as men.
No,
I don't think you know what I'm saying.
No,
go on.
So you're talking about the predator nature that.
But I'm saying that we have to be honest about the fact that a lot of that socialization resulted in a lot of behaviors.
Yeah, of course.
Right, just what I'm saying, right?
So compounded, become normal.
Right, just what I'm saying. In terms of how we talk to relate to women, so it may not have been. We may have grown out of it now.
Yeah,
but just what I'm saying, right? So we have to be honest about that, and acknowledge that this is a reality. Beyond an individual circumstance, we have to acknowledge that this is a reality, right? Just what I'm saying, right? And then using that information when we're confronted with an individual circumstance, that acknowledgement should inform how we respond.
I also think using speaking school as a perfect example, right?
Yes.
How do we present ourselves and present our information to make it more alluring for women to feel comfortable to come and speak, right? Because sometimes when I was doing speaking school, the guys would be very boyish and this kind of stuff. I was mentioned by certain women who mistakenly thought that women weren't welcome.
Yes.
That if they were welcome, they'll be pushed aside. And I've obviously that's a perceived concept. Obviously, you're looking at men who do what men do and stuff. But obviously, women being a different thing, seem very different. So how we interact here, and also reaching out and inviting women down when they come, making a space, giving them and be respectful. All that has to be developed.
The other thing though is that all the conversations can't take place on social media or online, and I'm saying that to acknowledge the fact that there are sisters and brothers in the community who are doing work around these things.
Behind the scenes,
right? You see what I'm saying? Right, you know what I'm saying? So I want to acknowledge that, because sometimes we have these conversations as though it's not happening.
Yeah, true.
Just what I'm saying.
Well, this is a byproduct of that.
Right, just what I'm saying. So I want to acknowledge the sisters and the brothers, and maybe on another conversation about this subject, we should spend more time highlighting those people and that work, those organisations. Just what I'm saying, because a part of the solution is highlighting the solution where it exists. Just what I'm saying. And there are men and women and men who are doing some fantastic work, and so a lot of the despair that we experience is partly because a lot of the conversation, the traumatic conversation takes up more airspace than the healing conversation.
But that's like the whole history of sensationalism and that kind of stuff.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And it's very important that we heighten the levels of the healing that are taking place. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I think that's why we're creating, I don't like the word safe space, but I don't like it. But we're trying to create that here. Especially for black people, definitely for black women.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And we want to have like a constructive way of doing things.
Yes, sir.
Where we minimize that kind of like wrestling back and forth. And more solutions.
Black men need to have less conversations about black women's obesity. No, I'm being serious. You know what I'm saying? Black women being too masculine. You see what I'm saying? And more conversations about our own manhood and about how we protect the women in our communities and ourselves under whatever circumstances, right? The point I'm making is that a lot of the reasons why a lot of sisters don't feel protected is because a lot of the conversations that black men are having publicly, outside of just abuse, outside of just abuse, is being received as an attack. Do you see what I'm saying? And there's not enough constructive black male-female dialogue going on. Yeah.
I think also to being like humble, like with me, personally, I've had to self-reflect on myself because I've had behaviors in the past that I would see as poisonous to myself and society. And that poison can leach onto other people. I'm 34 now, but then at the end of the day, I've had relationships with women and I could have been poisonous to them mentally, not physically because men are carrying no STDs, but mentally I could have been poison to them. Even financially, I've been poisonous to one of my past partners, where when I got a bit slack and I stopped working, I basically was leeching off her. And in general, even like, I think it's just, you have to just self-reflect on yourself, or I had to self-reflect on myself.
Definitely.
And looked at what parts of me is cancerous or poisonous to, in general, anyone. It could be to women I communicate with, my family, friends when I used to have friends and stuff. And like, I think it's just self-reflection for myself, because I could admit and say that even when it comes to the culture of womanizing, when I was younger, it was a normal thing for, say, like, have multiple women and sleep with multiple women. And for me now, that just seems a bit weird. To sleep with multiple, no, I'm being honest. For me now, it seems a bit weird if my objective would go out to look at the bed multiple women and having fornication and things in not necessary areas and places, in public places, not in front of people, but you know. I had a lot of hedonistic behaviour with women and doing things where even sexually I look on it, I think, oh, that's weird. I wouldn't do that. That's disgusting. I wouldn't do that now. And like thinking, but it's to show I was toxic, you know. And so I was a toxic person. But obviously, you're talking more about abuse and women getting beaten down and women getting sexually abused. I know that's a different thing, but it's the same.
It comes from right. That's what I'm saying. And I think that you provided a good example. In the sense that they're saying that confession is good for the soul, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm saying
improve
that,
yourself.
And I'm saying that level of reflection, because we're talking about, Raven asked the question, how can we make the sisters feel safe? And I think that levels of self-reflection and being comfortable enough and confident enough to share those kinds of self-reflections, publicly, can go a long way. Just what I'm saying. So,
I had to do it to better myself.
Yeah, man appreciates that.
I had to do it because I wouldn't improve. Like say, I've stopped smoking weed, I've stopped smoking cigarette, I stopped drinking alcohol, don't drink fizzy drinks. Now it's a bit boring now, I'm a vegan, but don't worry about that. I'm not going to try and convert nobody. But I've had to clean myself up and stuff. And like, because a lot of things were toxic, man. Takeaway smoking, even getting involved in things where it can affect you and the law, you know, it's just living a life where it's just poison, you know. It's poison.
And I
and
think
you can spread your poison to others.
I think part of it is that we have to realize that because a lot of people look for simple solutions to complex problems, and so the idea of just believing victims, is a principle that on face value I agree with. But when you apply it to real life situations, one of the reasons why it doesn't always happen is because of the different levels of complexity that need to be addressed in a situation. You see what I'm saying? And I think that as a part of the broader conversation, we need to acknowledge those complexities and not expect it always to be simple. Not always expect people to come to your point of contact, immediately. This what I'm saying. And I say that because when we look at issues such as these, and when we look at where they've been studied, there's a brother by the name of Tommy Curry, for example, who's done a lot of studies, mostly on populations in America, but he lives over here incidentally now, right? And in terms of black men, abuse, statistics, sociology, that kind of thing, and where a lot of the perceptions come from, and there are issues that exist, but often how they're portrayed in popular discussion and popular media doesn't reflect the actual reality of the nature of the issues, internally. Thank you very much. What I was saying is, I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Tommy Curry, the man not, but I was saying that we have to acknowledge that the issues are very complex, and so, for example, when it comes to believing victims, so there are some people that are going to come to that realization or that understanding immediately, and they're gonna act on that basis. There are others that, because the issues are complex, are going to be slower to do that, and we have to acknowledge the levels of complexity involved in why different people are going to respond differently at different points. So the reason why I'm saying that is because, like Tommy Curry, in his book The Man Not, he deals with various, he's a sociologist, right? So he deals with various different levels of how black men have been perceived throughout history and them kind of things there, but in relation to issues in our community. And he says that oftentimes the popular conversation or the stereotype or the portrayal doesn't necessarily always reflect the complete reality of what is actually taking place on the ground in the community, right? So it's not that the issue is not real, but how it's being discussed is not taking into consideration the various different nuances, you see what I'm saying? And so we're trying to solve a problem based upon a faulty analysis sometimes. Go.
No, you're right. And look, you can't even move past that point, right? But the same token, it comes down to how women perceive you. And it's like, if they feel a certain way, how are we taking time out to have a conversation to show them that what they perceive isn't the case, and we're on it, and this should be like
I agree.
If there's a narrative floating around that black women are not protected, where are the people pushing forward that we're here to protect them?
But
counter that narrative.
And that's the thing, because black women are not protected. Okay. But the black community is not protected.
Yeah, of course.
Right? This is what I'm saying. So it's impossible for black women to be protected outside of the community being protected in general.
But I think the argument is because there are some complaints that they're facing racism outside the community and mistreatment within it.
Let me show you something, right? I was at Africa Liberation Day was the 25th of May. It's the Africa Liberation Day weekend right now, right? So normally I'd be in Birmingham right now, right? But different thing I've got. 1 year AOD, brother by the name of Renoko Rashidi, was over. Yeah, he's a poet. He works with young people in terms of gang violence, and he made a statement. He said black men will not stop beating black women until we stop killing other black men. Yeah? I was young when he said this. I got what he was saying, but I didn't fully get it. You see what I'm saying? And I get it more now. And it sounds like an excuse, right? But there's a level to if we deep what he's actually saying, he's saying that there's gang violence is not often portrayed as abuse, but it is.
Oh yeah.
Right. This is what I'm saying, right? And so we try to deal with issues in isolation as though this issue exists separate from this issue.
Okay.
Right, this is what I'm saying. And it's all connected. So if I can't look at another brother, listen, the fracture between me and you as brothers is what's leaving the way open for our sisters to be abused and unprotected by each other, but not addressed. Do you see what I'm saying?
I agree with that, because you know, all these issues we're talking about, it's like it's a cycle of trauma, and then it's like a cycle of trauma, and it's being passed down generationally, and it's like we're handing down different poisons from our own behavior and mannerisms that then into after effect turns into, some people turn into gang life, some people turn into questionable sexual behavior, some people, it's coming out into negative. There's something within our family structures and our friend structures where we're allowing this to perpetually fuel each generation, because the generation before us did things as questionable. We got people in our thing doing things as questionable. Yeah, you're right, the way how you said that. What you described was right. We have to deal with the roots.
Can I
There's
say
a root to
something?
all of this.
Well, I think the reason why there's a lot of men being violent towards black women, right, is black women for a long time has been against the black man to turn
Through colonialism.
Yeah, through colonialism. They have sided with the white people because it's better to be with white but in order to get the life they want, but being with the black. And I think that has caused the violence within our culture because a black woman, right, she just wants her man to be a man, right? But the truth is, we're not men in this culture. They take that way. They take that away from us, right? And the woman is superior to the man in this culture because she is given higher priority than the black man, and it's been allowed to go on too long.
There's two things here. The first thing is that we would need to validate your first preference. Yeah, in the sense of black women as a group,
as a collective group,
right? Be working against black men.
Yes, they have.
Right, hold on. We need to validate that. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if that can be validated,
it can be validated. It goes back to slavery, where they used to beat the black men in order to submit it. So they used to think, listen, if he keeps playing up like this, he's not going to survive. So what they done is the black women. That's where the word beating comes from in Jamaica. It's been going up for generations in order to keep the black child in place.
But what were they doing to black women during slavery?
Well, they were doing the worst. They were doing rape. They were doing wrong.
Okay.
And in some cases, some black women sold them. Some black women gave sex to the masters in order so they could get better treatment. And they had lighter skinned kids who did get better treatment. They were more educated, and they were kept. So black women have always, in some way, mostly submitted to the white man.
In ways that black men have not?
Yes.
I would say we're in the same boat when it comes to submission.
Exactly. There's no... I hate this thing. I'm sorry, not to attack you, yeah? There is no dynamic that exists when it comes to black men and black women in relation to the system, yeah, of colonialism and enslavement, that whereby black women have been more submissive to it than black men, or vice versa. That doesn't exist. We have never been more submissive along gender lines. Hold on. When it came to colonialism, a lot, and even the colonialists document this themselves. A lot of the resistance to colonialism came from women. Yeah? Came from women, organized groups of women. So the idea that black women on the whole was succumb to colonialism and allowed the man them to be attacked is nonsense.
Even that premise is that the women are allowing something.
It's problematic.
When you go into council houses and places like that, and see how black women, white people and Asians and all the other cultures treat their own people coming, and then when a black man goes in and says, listen, I've got this problem, and see the way the black woman treats him.
That's a different issue.
No, it's not a different issue.
It is.
They have sold out.
But they haven't sold out any more or less than black men.
True.
Black men sell, right? That's the point that's being made. Yeah, if you got black women sell out, you got black men sell out.
I'm not denying that.
So the selloutery is not gender.
It's balance.
Right, there's balance there. Yeah. Now, we can say, that where there is some element of truth in the sense of, in a patriarchal society, whereby men are considered to be breadwinners, and you take the capacity of breadwinning from the man, that can create issues in the relationship. And we have to look at how that manifests itself. But I'm saying that
that could be.
But I'm saying that the issue, because all we're saying there is that the woman got the job, not the man.
Yeah.
But then if the man got the job, then the man would be a sellout just like the woman is. Why is the woman a sellout when she gets the job, but the man is a breadwinner? And is a man if he gets the job.
But the truth is, when a black man becomes the proper breadwinner, like because either through sport or he's a genius in some way, or he's hyper clever or whatever, right? Then he always ends up with a white woman. That's a problem in itself.
So is that not in a black male problem?
No. What I'm trying to say to you, we're selling each other out regardless. Like you're saying, black and white, we're selling each other out. Because the truth is, if it was more balanced, a man to be a man, a black man and be a man within a man's society, and a woman to be a woman. You understand? The woman sees us as inferior because we're no longer breadwinners.
How we talk about hair is important because we're talking about perception. If women see you talk that way and I talk that way, then they're going to think that there's like this us and them and them.
It's not us and them.
No, but
that's how we will. That's the way the system wants it to be. We want the women and the men.
Choose what he's saying. Perception becomes your reality. Yeah. So the perception is that, whether it's true or not, the perception is that black men are not protected. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah. So that what is being said is that we need to address that perception. Yeah. Whether it's real or the perception must be based upon some form of a fracture in the reality. So we need to not just be addressing the issue, we need to be seen to be addressing the issue. And that begins with how we discuss the issue on cameras like this.
I was just about to say that the way how both of you come with your agenda is the correct way, because you're not bringing any kind of attack or negativity towards black women. You're actually coming with a very logical and scientific way of dealing with a socially engineered problem within the community. So I got to applaud you two, because you didn't come and say, the black woman. You come in the right way.
But I had cause to applaud you as well, because when you left, the brother was sharing his own personal reflection of having to change some of his own
toxic behaviour.
And I'm saying that's a part of the solution in the sense of demonstrating protection. Is the idea that when we can be seen to be that self-reflective.
Very important.
It's very important.
Yeah, recognition.
Just what I'm saying.
But I would say that what we want to do is, when we come here, we're trying to recognize that there's a purpose, but the purpose to be solution-based. And right now, it's just men speaking. We don't necessarily have the woman.
That's in my humble opinion. That's not necessarily wrong.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying if we have this week to week and we have a consistent theme,
Yes.
and the same thing is said, then that is going to contribute to
No, I agree. I agree.
For what you talked about just there.
No, I agree. I'm only saying what I'm saying because I've noticed a contradiction in some of these dynamics. That we want black men to solve a problem,
Yes,
but then when black men come together, we say, well, why is it only black men?
We need women,
Right?
black
This is
women,
what I'm saying.
black
what
women.
I'm saying is it's a narrative.
Yeah.
If
We
black
know
men
we
come
need-
together,
we
it's
need
the
black
same
women.
narrative. One time. If black men come together and we have the same narrative, right, that it's the black woman's fault.
Yeah.
Because in this time, she was living on our back.
Right.
And if that's a consistent theme,
Yes.
then that's going to be the issue.
No, agreed.
They're not really solving nothing.
Agreed.
They're pointing fingers.
Agreed.
And that's what we need to be aware
Agreed.
that we don't know.
And at the same time, it's important that came out.
Yeah, because a lot of
Right?
because a lot of people feel
right.
Yeah,
And-
100%.
but the reality is that it needs to come up because it needs to be addressed at the same time as well. And I'm saying that because by the same token, what the brother said is not an unusual argument, but on the other side, you're going to hear, well, this is what it is because the black men sold us out. That a lot of sisters say that. Right? A lot of sisters say the same thing. Yeah? Right? They're going to say the black men sold us out a long time ago. And the colonialism say the black man sold us out. But when we look into it, it ain't that simple. Right? That's what I'm saying. So we have to address those dynamics. And the reality is that we're often jockeying for position in relation to the dominant society.
Yeah.
Without looking at each other first. We're not seeing each other first. We're seeing our position relative to the dominant society and attacking each other based upon it. But all of that is kind of, I don't want to get away from where we started the conversation, which is about the sisters then and how we as men are addressing the lack of protection or the forms of abuse that are actually taking place within the community.
Yeah.
Right? This is what I'm saying. And it is taking place. And I'm saying that the starting point is acknowledgement that there is a problem. Right? The second thing is when we hear victims stepping forward, that we have to begin with compassion. Yeah? Right? Wherever the other surrounding issues are, we have to begin with compassion. Yeah? And I had a third point, but it's gone.
About education
Yeah?
towards that.
Say again?
Education towards it.
Well,
Like educating each individual about the actual, like where the problem is coming from.
right.
Yeah. So obviously, when you educate that,
You understand?
it will take away individual victimization. It will bring in a more collective
Right.
victim. So we could understand, say, oh, there's a root to all this problem. It doesn't just say, okay, this person did that.
Yeah, right.
It's an actual connection to it.
Right.
So the education of that would make it more, understandable.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? So we need that because we don't even know,
Yes, sir.
like literally where the root is coming from.
Most definitely.
So we have to really find that root so we could build from where that, so we could say, okay, there has been, victimization, but the victimization is based on a program for us to behave like this. So we have to say, okay, there's a program, so where's the program coming from so we can...
Do you know why your point is interesting? It relates to what the brother was saying in terms of men not feeling like the breadwinner. Yeah. So if our ideal of manhood is of a such that of a standard that we don't feel like we're meeting, and that is resulting in abuse of women, then maybe we need to question what our ideals of manhood. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is a breadwinner really? You know what I'm saying? Like, what does that mean? Where does that concept come from? And why is my manhood attached to being a breadwinner to the extent that if I'm not a breadwinner, it results in me being violent to my woman? There's something wrong.
No, you're wrong.
No, you're saying it's right, but
No.
there's a program to it. There's a program for that purpose. So the system has been programmed to say, okay, if the man is not a breadwinner, then there's something wrong because it has been a manipulation.
Yes.
So he said, okay, why did that system first come in place? So we would understand that system come in place to break us up.
Yes.
So he said, what's the underlining so we could, because morally, knowledge, wisdom could help that form come back together to say, okay, first we need to educate ourselves to see what is the
See, the
yes, I'm
system
saying,
is working against
What-
black
yeah.
and black women,
I got a
black
question.
men. Yeah.
For Raven specifically. But you were saying that you've been conversing with sisters who are on the receiving end of this kind of abuse.
Yeah.
And so from that experience, like what are you saying? What would you say that we should be doing, as brothers, as men, to address these things?
I think how we communicate is very important, and we need education on how to speak about these things publicly and behind the scenes, right? And is speaking in a way to make the women know that they can come forward.
Right.
And when they say something, we're going to listen.
You want to
We're going
speak,
to take it
you
seriously.
can speak. You're polite to wear a woman's point of view.
Yeah, whenever everyone's welcome, whenever, no pressure, no pressure. Another thing, how we actually, I guess, how we also disagree as well. I think sometimes the way we disagree with certain things can be very controversial, right? And I think putting the victims center. So we don't know who the victims are, but we put them center, right? And it's like, how do we go about doing it? But also, how do we go about protecting? Like, we have to ask questions like, a lot of these abuse happens when children are given to cousins. Cousins might be a few years older, so one might be 13, 6 or whatever, while the other might be 12, 15, whatever, much older, right? Also, when they tell on the uncles, the aunts, how you react. And what I mean by that is saying things like, they're rather brush under the table, because if it comes out, it's going to bring shame to the family, this kind of stuff. That is definitely not the way we would do it, right? But then saying that, what is the protocol?
So we need to develop a program.
Yeah, where's the protocol? Like if someone is 4 or 5 years older does this, what do we do?
Right.
Do we ring the police?
Right.
Do we beat them? Do we send them to Jamaica? Send them to Africa? What is the protocol?
No, these are serious questions.
You know what I mean?
But because we can say, we need to deal with it, but then we never discuss what.
What do we do?
Right? What exactly? And there is no way around that. We have to develop some kind of protocol. It's not something that we're going to solve right now.
No, it's
right? That's what I'm saying. But we have to say, like these are. We need to develop some kind of. If this happens, what do we do?
I think you have to deal with the obviously the victim, but then you have to deal with the perpetrator as someone who has deviant, malfunctioning behaviors. So deviant, malfunctioning behavior, because it's a case of where, how can I explain? If someone is beating a child with violence, or they're sexually abusing another child, so let's just say one child is sexually abusing another child, or one child is beating another child secretly, you got to see it as malfunctioning, deviant, abusive behavior. So you have to deal with it with science, that you're dealing with someone with a mental instability. You're dealing with someone with mental instability. So I think you need to make sure then you have people around you who are knowing of the actual psychology. So you're going to need psychologists, not to say you have to go outside, but if you have people studying psychology, then deal with the situation. There's no right or wrong. Who knows? But you need to study psychology, because you're dealing with someone who's got malfunctioning behavior that's not fitting.
We also have to eliminate the opportunity in the sense of like leaving children alone with one other person. We have to really review should we be doing that.
With randoms.
Definitely randoms, but even
That's an interesting one for me. Go on.
I think it's like you kind of need to, because obviously when these things happen, a lot of people say, I never knew that so-and-so would do such a thing, right? So it's how do we review the process of trusting this family member, this friend, to be alone, and should they ever be alone? Should there be a process where children are always in twos, or parents are always in twos, and should there be debriefing things where we're constantly asking our children questions, not direct questions, but find out how they live.
If someone is abusing a child, right, to tell you the truth, he doesn't deserve to have a child. It should be taken away.
Well, the abuse doesn't necessarily come from the person who has the child. It could be from the cousin, friend, neighbour.
Oh yeah, well that's what I'm saying. It should be taken away from the abuse.
Oh, is it, what do you mean as in like...
Like he says, it's not normal to function in such a way if you're abusing a that child. So if it's come from outside the family, right, like the immediate family, that person should be punished and punished properly.
No, but
right?
what he's saying is he's going beyond just the individual circumstance in terms of how we address the issue when it comes up as family, as community, and having some standards for that. This is what I'm saying. That what's the investigation process? Yeah, do we call the police or not call the police? Do we send them by a bush? Yeah, and never to be seen again. Right? This is what I'm saying. That's what he's saying. And I think that.
Do you think we ought to set up our own organisations where this can be dealt with? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, without question. I'm sure there is.
Yeah, well, that's what I think should be done. If we're going to investigate black families for doing perverted or abusive behaviour, right? It should be done by black people.
I agree.
Not white people, black people.
I agree, 100%. I think there's a sister space, and there's a few, but collating all the information about where these things are and getting them out there is important. That's what it is. People knowing that there's options, they're going through stuff. So then what you're seeing is people from the past, they've been abused in the 80s, in the 90s, and they've held on to it.
I suffered abuse when I was young. What the BT to misbehave?
A lot of men have. But because you mentioned Sister Space is an institution catering for women who have been victims of abuse. Yeah? There are also institutions that deal with men who are perpetrators and or potential perpetrators. I came across a brother by the name of Luke Daniels some years ago. He has a book called Pulling the Punches. And this is more about domestic violence more than it's sexual abuse. But he does counselling for men who believe they have the potential to become violent, domestically, and also men who have become violent domestically. But he does counselling for those men. That's what I'm saying.
There must be a recognition of certain characteristics that makes a person more prone
to do that.
And that makes it important.
Yeah. No.
Because when you hear some of the stories of abuse, some of the behaviours and lifestyles these men live at, it's alien to many of them. Like, I would never do that.
Right.
Why would you do that? So, what is it kind of like? Even I was talking before the camera was on about there might be a man who, once he's accused, then becomes violent because let's say he believes he's innocent, but his natural reaction is violence, like anger towards being accused. So even that then needs to be, has to review. How do you react?
But most, would you say abusers are usually being abused at some point?
Well, this is a big thing.
Yeah, this is
50-50.
I think there's some truth to that to some degree. And abuse can take various different forms as well.
There's also
though, I don't want to underestimate because a lot of people who have been victims do get support from a lot of their families as well. You know what I'm saying? And I've seen that too. You know what I'm saying? So I want to acknowledge that as well as in the community as well. You know what I'm saying? And I think that the reason why I highlighted that example because we're talking about us as men. So it's not just about how we support victims of abuse, it's about how we stop men from being abusers. Right? And
You know what? And this is a bit different, but I'm saying in culture, there's certain things in cultures where it helps with toxicity. Because if we look at, say, a Caribbean culture, I know there's certain soca music. I like soca music. And then if you go to certain venues in the Caribbean and some in the UK, you'll see literally friends and family and children dancing in very vulgar ways. And then it's a case where very sexual, and sometimes there'll be even, say, cousins dancing with other cousins, and that's one part of Caribbean culture that's a bit toxic. I'm going to another toxic. In Papua New Guinea, there's a tribe where when the male boys want to get initiated into manhood, the elders get the 8-year-old boys to give fellatio, we know what fellatio is, give fellatio to 15-year-old to 16-year-old boys, and then they need to then make the person release themselves, and then the better they do it, I don't even want to even go into that. But I'm trying to say this.
I hear you saying that.
These
That
different
might be, I don't, that might be
toxicities in
too much toxicity
in different
kind of thing.
cultures where
I'm not too sure about that. I'm saying research, but that, I don't think that's a worldwide issue. But it's definitely the concept of being toxic is something that we definitely want to
and the womanizing in songs like say, oh, I had this woman, she gave me fellatio, then after that I kicked her out of the car, then after that I went into the club, I spilled my drink on her because she's not worth it. Like, this is very toxic
the willingness
behavior.
to how that comes out is important. Like, the willingness to write that kind of content and the freedom of how it's distributed, that is something that we want to tackle. And I think that can also be an economic issue of controlling media and labels, so we control the output. We generally want to balance that, so we're not getting a whole lot of content where there is a crime in mistreating your community. And also, when you look at other communities, whenever negative things are said about them on a media way, you get shut down really quick because there are certain groups out there to look out to make sure certain people are not saying certain things about certain communities. We can't lead it ourselves, where we shut down certain things. It doesn't work in our collective position. A whole mass content of men or whoever saying derogatory things towards women doesn't work in any community.
You know what I see here? You know with like social abuse, you know, and obviously because it's a construct. Abuse is a construct, and obviously it's coming from the social environment that we have been created to be in, and obviously that abuse then fall into different communities, and obviously because it's falling into different communities and we don't have our own as a global. That's why, okay, say abuser done something, they will take the children or whoever and bring them to a system that or institution that's already there for all of that practice. You know, like we are still trying to, you know, build our own, you know, institution based on all of these situations that we're going through. And because again it was based on a principle for us to be arguing, for us to be confused, for us to be abusive. The underlying matter of it is that to find ourselves and our inheritance, it makes it better for us to establish these institutions so that we could get the matters done between ourselves.
I'm going to say sorry. When you said that, when we have institutions, in trying to solve the problems, we need to go to that institution more than we go to social media. And I'm saying that because a lot of people go to social media because they feel like that's the only option in the absence of having relevant institutions that are effective in addressing those issues. And I'm saying that oftentimes it's not a solution. It blows off steam. It might highlight a problem, but the solution is in the work that is taking place behind the scenes. And so I'm saying that again to say that we're going to need to spend more time. Do you know who Robinson? Is that going to be it?
A bit more. So you said you want to say something, brother?
Yeah.
I'm back a bit.
We're talking about the physical aspects of abuse. We need to address the mental.
I agree.
The mental abuse as well. What black males go through and females, right? Because that has more of an effect on our community than anything else. Because basically, if you're not fit up here, you're not fit at all.
Did you say that it affecting males is more?
Not just males, females as well. Because we're talking about mental abuse. We're telling when a kid's growing up, you can't achieve this, you won't be able to achieve this, you won't be able to do that. That affects that child from the moment he gets into primary school till when he goes to school. If he doesn't believe he's worth anything, then he's lost, he's gone.
So do you think there's a value in starting campaigns, black love campaigns and black economic campaigns, as in like actual campaigns that as a community we have an agenda. And the agenda is to spread the concept, the idea of black love, and what that actually means, and the multifaceted things that means.
Yeah.
And then also the black economics and this kind of stuff. Right?
Yeah.
But maybe this time, because this is something that I'll be pushing from next week in our corner, the concept of how do we go about spreading the value, making it a valuable thing, where black people automatically want to be a part of black people, fix black issues, marry black people, and make sure we don't mistreat anyone in the black community. It's an actual campaign. That it's when you think of it, we feel pride. It's something we really want to do.
Do you know, I'm gonna say this. I feel like because we talk about roles, of men and what roles among black men have been diminished here, and we often start with the breadwinner thing, but not the father thing. And the role of a black man as father has been thoroughly diminished, and I put it forward that if we had more of a developed fatherhood instinct, as a part of what it means to be a man, then abuse of girls.
That's a campaign there, bro. You see that?
Right. Would not happen because you're looking at all the girls as your daughters. Do you see what I'm saying? And so because the fatherhood instinct has been underdeveloped in a lot of us and under portrayed, in terms of because a lot of us are good fathers, but the image of black men is not as the father, and so a lot of young black men have to develop the fatherhood thing later in life, not from the examples that are properly portrayed. So I'm saying that a significant aspect of this is how we perceive ourselves, as men, in terms of what our roles are towards the women that are in our environment. You know what I'm saying? Are we brothers enough? You know what I'm saying? Like, as well as being a stallion lover, and it's good to be a stallion lover. I'm sure the sisters appreciate, under proper circumstances, the stallion lover. But are we brothers enough? I got a sister who called Tasha Al-Makida. She's an artist, and she got a line in the song where she says, what's it called? I don't need you as a lover. Why can't you be my brother? Yeah? You know what I'm saying? So do we have that sensibility more in terms of how we perceive is our manhood fulfilled by how much we can be brothers to black women as well as lovers, as well as fathers? You see what I'm saying?
Yes, what you're saying, the sexual element isn't brought into it. We start thinking about women as sexual
objects,
and we start thinking them as human beings, as people.
I think if we can think of a concept here where protecting women and providing all this kind of stuff is actually tied into being a man, as in protection of what that means and the many different facets of what protection is, right? And that's tied in. So harming women is actually taking us away from them, right? It's something just like there's certain things that people don't want to be called, don't want to be, right? And what of those things are, we want to do the same thing for when it comes to abusing women, as in like, this is something you don't want to do. And naturally, there's very few people who come forward and go, I'm an abuser, That's what I'm saying. But at the same time, like you said with all the music stuff, there's certain things people confess where you think, well, you've confessed, it doesn't really shine a good light on you as a man, right? If you're happy to tell people that you mess around with women, you don't look after them, you don't provide for them, you're happy to disregard them, that isn't a good vision.
Most people, some black people, they I would say the nature of some of these black people, and the girls are attracted to them for some reason, is not good. They are bad.
That might be time to another topic where
you understand, they are bad.
There's a topic that circulates that there's some people say there are good men out there who try to push themselves as good men, but they're not getting the attention.
They're not.
Because bad men apparently get more attention. I know that's a different topic, but that's something that we can address at some point.
Yeah, because all these women who seem to be complaining about being abused, they seem to always go with guys who have multiple girlfriends. You understand? Doesn't care that much what women think.
So
I've got friends who are like that.
Bear in mind, some of what you're talking about are children as well. So we're not just talking about adults. So we have to bear that in mind. That's not totally different about what you're saying. But I'm just saying that we have to bear Yeah, because it can be perceived that what you're saying is dismissive of people who are victimized in this kind of way, right? And or victim blaming, so to speak. And so I don't want to.
I don't want to. I'm not like. I'm just stating that there's guys out there who don't think very much of women, and they have a certain. That's their way. Like a friend of mine.
Let us say that there are people, women included, who are, for whatever is going on for them, find themselves in abusive situations. Yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Yeah.
But that is not a justification for the abuse.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Just what I'm saying. So we understand that people, through men and women, through various different whatever life circumstances, get involved in dysfunctional and abusive relationships. It doesn't make them any less a victim of abuse if they are in fact being abused.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Or even so obviously I have groups of people and friends and basically some women that have been abused. Because they've been abused so much, it's like when you're trying to provide information to help that, because they're traumatized that much, they're still seeing, even a genuine person as an abuser. So, it's definitely, again, will be based on that type of institutional aspect, because it's a long ratio over time. So we have to, again, provide more education like this, and that's why I had to write a book based on our inheritance, because it's based that something has been taken away from us, and because something has been taken away from the bottom, we're trying to build a building block, but the block keeps falling down because there's no foundation. That's why the book is called The Crown is a Birthright, and this is based on our standing ground, like where these things to make the women feel like they're really queen again, to show them that this is, your right, your heritage. You have brothers and sisters that don't look at you in any type of way, but as a queen to help and protect. So we have to. The education is key first. It's definitely a key where the collective, share that understanding about the value, of our women and our men, and where they're coming from that value, because a system has been created based on our inheritance, so that we could not reach that, but yet we are suffering based on what has been created. So it's a thing that we have to put back the foundation, because it's not removed as in something that could be taken away, but we have been confused. They have been damaged. We're still in a war state of mind frame. So when we remove all of these war mind frame, these damages, by putting back the inheritance that's already there, we will see ourselves just like as Marcus Garvey and everything else and all our leaders.
Down to what the brother was saying there about picking a particular type of person, and whether that happens in the young generation or not. I think rebranding what is appealing is something that we can do.
100%.
Pushing like people who are self-educated, educated on particular things, knowledgeable about certain things, people who are community-led, community focused, people who are pro-black or pro-African, whatever it might be, where they have a community-led ethos, right? Yeah. People who are solution-based, people who want to learn and progress, right? People who want to actually expand economics in the community and provide jobs and this kind of stuff. Having more value on those particular characters, right? That might shift the narrative. That might shift how we perceive things, and that's why I think benchmark rebranding on a higher scale is important. Yeah? Like changing where this low benchmark, put it much higher, should be the thing, and making sure that people who are in that space get the most, so that everyone is trying to achieve that, right? Rather than everyone's trying to achieve that. That might be an idea, but everything we're going to do has to be a campaign, right? And the campaigns are important. So if we are on social media, it's like, how do we campaign? How do we act? How do we use words to change the narrative? It's very important. Yeah. And that's what we're going to do as a community, come together and have those words, right? Have ways of speaking and ways of doing that make sure that no matter what, we're focused on our own collective betterment, right? Do you know what I mean? And this
Can I put that more
Sure,
bluntly?
sure,
That
go
you
ahead.
just- 'cause that was very diplomatic, yeah. But where I want to be more direct than what Raven just said is, as black men in public conversation, we need to invest more time in channeling positive projections of black men and developing ourselves as those positive projections, rather than challenging black women, just what I'm saying, for whatever they may be doing wrong or rightly, if that makes sense, right? We need to be our own solution in terms of the language and the images that are projected about us. Just what I'm saying. I think that's an essential.
10 points for that, and I'm going to add to that. And what I'm saying might be slightly controversial, but I'll say it in the sense of the way I see it. The people who campaign and market in all people groups is usually the men. Yeah, the men campaign of what their group is, right, and what they want the world to perceive that generally, right? So I'm saying that we should be campaigning of how we want people to perceive us and how we want to treat our women, and we are taking control of that. We take control of how people perceive us and do that. I think that's something that I think we should be doing. So what we can't be doing is saying it's the woman to blame, because if we're taking control, we are creating the infrastructure and the narrative that things are being perceived. Right? Do you know what I mean? Not to be too controversial, but earlier the brother was talking about sometimes when some brothers become very rich in their sporting and music life, they might choose to go to other communities to get married, right?
Like a light-skinned person.
But I say this, how we should review that is view that as another community has marketed their woman as the best, and we have, rather than actually counter that with showing them our best, we've just succumbed to someone else's campaign and given up.
I agree. But we sold ourselves, the musicians in our community have sold us to the devil, basically, because some of the music they are producing is that's the beginning
What are we doing?
of everything.
What are we doing as a community?
We should be listening to that music.
So, once you become like Pan-Africanized or woke, or whatever word you want to use, pro-black or black betterment led or whatever, right? Yeah. Once you become like just full into it, there's certain things you just can't say. You just can't say. It makes no sense to say it, right? So, is there a value in teaching all our kids to be pro-black, Pan-African, black betterment? Is there a value? So once they start suing their brothers as brothers and their sisters as sisters, they can't, in their own consciousness, go on and make any kind of statement on TV, on radio, because it makes no sense. Like I said, you're never going to see other community groups go and make songs where they highlight derogatory terms to describe themselves and demean themselves, right? Yeah. Because there's infrastructure in place to stop that, right? When are we going to have our infrastructure to stop that? And I think from a family peer-to-peer kind of concept, and I'm saying, I'm being very plain. Black people, teach your children to love black people. Yes. It's that simple, really. Teach them to love black people and show them that it's the ultimate goal. It's for a constructive black man to be with a constructive black woman and make a constructive black family. Yeah. If these become your ultimate goal,
took a little break. The COVID
constructive, right? Always constructive. Constructive black man, constructive black woman, making a constructive black family. That's it. If we can do that and agree to that, then we're going to see progress. But we have to keep on backdoor and changing and benchmark rebranding. And then what about then we'll do it right. We have to all agree that for black people to be black people and be constructive is the best solution. Yeah? It's the best solution. Right? Black people being other black people and be constructive is the goal. Our corner here is to be constructive and find solutions to black people. Right? Whenever it's a black issue, we want to jump in it. And definitely we have to agree that there is no value in black man warring black woman. There's no value. And I say this, right?
Not for us, anyway.
No. And I say this is going to be very controversial, maybe, right? But whose responsibility in a community is to lead the fixing? The men or the women?
The men.
Okay.
I would say there's roles for both.
There's roles for both.
But as men, we've got to start with ourselves.
We have to stand before the woman can stand
right?
With us,
We gotta
right.
start
We are
with-
the defense group
Right.
of every family, of every community, right?
And if we say, because a lot of that is going on at the moment, yeah, men are supposed to be providers and protectors and so on and so forth. If that is the case, then we have to take responsibility for this thing. Yeah, that's just the reality. Like we can't say we are the providers and the protectors and then spend all of our time trying to get the sisters them to submit.
I'm moaning this.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. To the protection that we're not providing collectively. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make any sense.
Building is important. Why do I say this? Because when you build, it's something that people can admire, right? And black people coming together, or black men, should I say, to build things, to create stuff, to come ideas, concepts, institutions, build it as a collective, and on all cross media, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, building, having that as your purpose. Whenever you, whether you work for another people group or your own people group, how you take that your economics, funnel it into your own community, and build concepts, build ideas, build infrastructure, build things that are dedicated on black betterment, dedicated on Pan-Africanism, dedicated on these things that glorify and push forward black narratives.
And
Surely,
I'm going to add to that, actively seek to model positive ideals of manhood to younger black men. Yeah? So rites of passage programs exist in the black community. Boyhood to manhood programs exist in the black community. Right? And I'm saying that black men should see as our responsibility to be contributing towards those programs.
We should be building youth clubs.
Most
And
definitely.
we should be doing loads. We should be doing loads.
The concept of having to look after another man's child should not be seen as a shame
Yes,
to us.
that's it.
It should be seen as a responsibility, whether that father is in the child's life or not. You see what I'm saying? Like because he's got a dad, don't mean he don't need an uncle. You see what I'm saying? You get me?
I was going to reiterate that what you said. Where it's a good idea where we have to accept that the generation of children now are even more capitalistic than the generation before. When I mean by capitalistic, I mean inanimate.
The nicest things,
Yes,
the
inanimate
best
objects is slightly their demigod. We're not belittling our children. Our children are still the children of God, but they see logos and brands and inanimate object as their demigod, as in they're willing to do goddamn near anything to get it. But what we're trying to, what I want to reiterate you said is that we need people to show that you can get these things through
Without
means.
violence.
Yeah, so let's just say a plumber. So let's just say once a week we have a black plumber. We have a black electrician, we have a black nurse, we have a black radio host, we have a black person come pull up with their cars to the no, it doesn't matter. Look, it might be psychology, it might sound pull up with their cars to the actual school, yeah, they got nice clothes and stuff, so at least the children will see like, oh, I'm gonna have to sell drugs to get that. This person just has to just work for 4 or 5 years, get it on finance. Oh, mate, you see what you mean? You're showing the children that, because you know what, I'm gonna be honest with you. A lot of these drug dealers have nice cars and that, but actually, to be fair, you can be a nurse, or you don't have to be a doctor. You can be a nurse, get that same car and finance for about 5 or 6 years, and you ain't gonna put your life at risk. You know what I mean? It's not even.
No, you're very
you know
true.
what I mean?
Very true.
The cars ain't really even. You know what I
Is
mean?
there a good point, bro? Is there a value, right, in shifting a
need role
person's
models.
desires or wants, in the sense of when you mention logos, these kind of stuff? Is there value in using the same engine saying, you know what? How about actually buying black-owned stuff? As in making that a pride-based thing. Like now our children are taking pride in looking for black-owned, black companies that make stuff. And in the back of the mind, also wanting to become that black-owned company, knowing that the community is.
There's many.
I say you're 100% right, but I'm just dealing with their mentality now.
But what I'm saying is
That I would say you are right,
what
but
I'm
it's their
saying-
mentality
remember,
now.
We come here now to try to guide and direct, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, most of the things that is not working out in our best interest collectively, somewhere someone has programmed that behavior. Right?
100.
Because the things that many black people in certain aspects isn't in our collective best interest. But
Yeah.
someone has made that make sense.
Yeah.
So I'm saying when we come here, is there a value in trying to redirect that? Well, I'm saying when you mention things about brands, this kind of stuff, would this be a good point to interject? You know what? Is there a value in actually wanting to support black-owned brands?
Yeah.
So it's like if you are going to buy something, you have a sense of pride that I went and bought this brother's.
Like
trainers
Trap
that-
Star.
Yeah.
Because them brothers started that in West.
Yeah,
And
there
I
you
respect that. It's expensive, but I respect it.
Well, like I said, so if you are going to, because there is a competitor brand that sells just the same that is European or
Yeah,
Asian.
yeah.
So So if you're gonna, rather than buy that, buy the brothers' one.
I agree
But,
with you.
so,
Yeah.
I think this is a step in the right direction, but I would also put forward a protocol of, in order for us to get black people to go and support black businesses, there has to be like an agreement of like, okay, as a black business, we also support the black community, and also we do need like a hierarchy in the lifestyles that the people who choose. For example, do they promote black families? Do they promote constructive black families? Yeah? This is something like these are all going to be your betterment points, and the more betterment points you get, the more we're going to try to collect people to go to shop at your stuff and buy your stuff. Because before
You well thought out this.
of course, before COVID hit and everyone was separated, we wanted to do a thing called co-unity spend. That was, we find as many black business economic institutions stuff, and we systematic shop there, and we promote that, we put it on social media, and we make it a thing. Obviously, within the collating of that data, there will have to be a hierarchy of, if we've got 400 shops, which one comes first and which one is priority? And those things is, how are they in the community? How are they with their family? Do they have a black family? This kind of stuff, right? All these things, and that sounds weird, but when
Is that brother married to a black woman?
Don't shame them.
I don't think, yeah, but I don't think mixed marriage is a problem. I think if a black man is with a white woman, as long as he knows he's a black man.
But you were just talking about the man them selling out.
No, I didn't mean it in that sense.
I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is,
Hold on, family, let's say this for you, right?
let's rephrase that.
We have to have a benchmark.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about what black people should do, I'm talking about what they should do. And
And
the
why you
best
say they should.
achievement is a constructive black man and a constructive black woman.
Okay,
So if we have a whole lot of businesses, and if we have a constructive black man and a constructive black woman, and also they do community work, and they have Afrocentric based products, whatever.
So
all
they're
these
the ones
things,
you put forward.
of course, because
Yes,
yeah,
because
of course.
that makes sense.
So now what we do is we tell the black community, these are the criteria.
The standard.
That
Yes,
make
that's
people
the
stand out.
standard,
It's
yeah.
like, okay, that's the standard. I'm going to achieve that. You see, we always raise the benchmark. We don't lower it. Yeah. So we have to start again. Constructive black man or constructive black woman, maybe constructive black family is the goal.
Yeah,
That's the benchmark.
Yeah, that's
Everything
the
else is
benchmark.
missing the benchmark.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So who
yeah,
gets priority? The benchmark.
Yes,
what it is.
yeah.
You see?
100%.
There you go.
This is just an oddity what I'm going to say though, but I agree with him 100%. There's a lot of black women with white men,
Yeah,
and they do a lot of charity work for black causes. I've noticed that little oddity.
Yeah,
but
but-
anyway, change subject. I'm just saying I've just noticed that. But
Yeah,
anyway,
but there's also white women, black men with white women, and white women support their black
No, not as
men
much,
in
not
their
as much.
community.
But once again,
Not
all
as
that
much.
stuff
but
there-
you're 100%. Your gender
again,
is the main one.
I'm very controversial in my views because my observation demonstrates to me that collectively we're underdeveloped when it comes to working as a team.
100.
And I've noticed that when it comes to other community groups, they have a high emphasis on being within their community when it comes to marriage. While they definitely emphasize do not marry those black people because they understand how to keep it within their community. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm saying that there is a strategy to this and there is a logic to this, and I can't flaw it. And I'm saying people can be who they want, but the benchmark, the people get the priority are constructive black man
Yes,
or
good
constructive
point.
black woman.
Because
100%.
within the black community, there are some that have their tradition and stuff, and religion and stuff. That's the reason. You understand? Yeah, so I'm coming from. Yeah. So people with the same tradition, they like to keep the family within that tradition, so you won't get lost, kind of. You know what I'm saying?
What about talking about is the benchmark? There are many traditions where it's easy to come together and cultures to go with people with the same culture. I'm saying with black people from this standpoint, especially in the diaspora, we are creating the culture. And the culture we are creating, we all have our own culture, right? We do. But when it comes to as we are here, we are creating the culture of better. Yeah? So it's a culture of how do we do better? And through the solutions, that becomes culture. So when you keep doing certain things, that becomes the culture, right?
Yeah.
So we all agree that we want to be constructive. We agree with constructive black man, constructive black woman, constructive black family, and black economics, black love. The things we're going to do will become culturalized, and that is when we're looking for someone who's within the culture. Well, that's what it is, right? Because this other person agrees with these concepts.
I understand. But there are some black community that would love to have that culture that they're in. You understand?
Are you saying that so that they see other cultures?
That doesn't go against what he's saying.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. So in the
No,
sense of
he's saying us in a whole we can create that. You understand? You understand? But there are some people that will love to have the forefathers what's it called, culture, to not lose it. You understand? They want to keep
but
it. You understand?
that doesn't detract from. So if you are from a specific black group, yeah, and you want a wife from that specific black group,
Yeah, you can.
that doesn't take away from the betterment that provides to the broader black group.
Yes.
So that's not a contradiction. It's only a contradiction, or it doesn't meet the standard that we're putting forward if we go outside of it. This is what I'm saying.
You can be within two tradition or within at the same time, because I can say now,
That's what he's saying.
because I was raised there, I'm a bit westernized, but at the same time I know my background as well. You understand?
Right.
I hear
No,
you,
but we're talking about a standard, yeah? So we're saying that in terms of solving problems among black people, that we need to develop certain kinds of relationships among ourselves to solve certain problems. One of those kinds of relationships is familial, like marriages. Yeah? You see what I'm saying? And so emphasizing that standard as something for people to aspire to, for black children to aspire to, is something that we should do. So it doesn't mean
It doesn't mean that you can't.
bro. For example, there are certain brothers and sisters here who are from the continent or the Caribbean, and they want a man or a woman from the continent or the Caribbean. There are others, what's it called? Like if for example, I know brothers or sisters from the Caribbean, they want a man from the continent or a woman from the continent, because they have an aspiration to bridge that divide that was created, for example, you see what I'm saying? So all of those sensibilities can exist,
Yeah, they all exist.
right? They're all good.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with them in the context of betterment of black people. Does that make sense?
As long as the person's black, that's it.
I hear what you're saying. We're creating a benchmark. So the benchmark is that we've got 9 minutes, so we have to make this the best 9 minutes there, right? So every time we come in week to week, right, we want to establish our goals and what we want to do, and make sure we make those benchmarks, right? And everything has to work in the collective best interest of black people. If it does do it, then we can say, okay, we're going to work towards that, and we're going to stay dedicated towards it, right? So we are talking about economics. We are talking about black blood. We are talking about we are breaking it down to the factors and making sure that our women feel supported and secure, and also we can send a space where at a certain point we can have women come down there and give their testimonies and vice versa, right? I'm very proud of everyone coming there, by the way. Very organic, our corner, that's normal.
Can I put a call out as well?
Go ahead.
On the because we're gonna come back. Obviously, this is not gonna be subject every week, but it would be good if there are brothers who are watching and listening who have a contribution to make, to reach out. Yeah, the Black Betterment channel broadcast on YouTube. COE Speakers Corner. Right. Let's hear more voices, and I'm saying specifically from black men on this issue, because the issue is that as black men, we're either not protecting or not seen to be protecting the Uman them. So let us hear the voices of black men on these issues, and let us see how we can connect as black men to provide some levels of solution on the various different levels.
And how do you take control amongst black men without necessarily pointing towards black women for the solution? How do we come together to fix that particular challenge?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's more.
That's where I said. I run a show called the Black Betterment Broadcast. That's dedicated to black issues, right? So if you want to jump in, every Friday at 10 o'clock, we have talks. So go on YouTube and type the Black Betterment Broadcast, and all brothers and sisters from the diaspora welcome to come in and work together to find solutions. Because what we're doing here is finding solutions for black people. Because there's multiple challenges, but we're going to be part of a solution-based group that's just always trying to find solutions and work on whatever is in black people's collective best interests. If we can do that, and we can culturally make that make sense, so all black people come down here to talk about these things, this is a victory, and we look like we're moving towards that solution.
I have one question. Do you believe religions make the whole races in one group and give everybody the same thing? Which religion, in your opinion, you believe is make every human being at the same level?
I couldn't answer that because there's so many different religions and people different. So I view religions as a personal thing, and I'm sure there is an answer to what you're saying. However, this particular channel is dedicated to people of African descent, and we're trying to find a way. How do we work together on issues that affect people of African descent. So we tend to not talk about certain things. Religion might be some challenge because there's so many different religions, so we wouldn't necessarily push for one religion.
For my belief, God tells us, whatever you spend for money, you never make the races the same, unless if you follow one religion, you pray for God, and in the God from His eye, everybody the same, nobody shame, unless if you are better than me.
And brother, and this for the camera, I think this is a spiritual moment. Why? Because the brother's coming here, and he's wearing an all-black T-shirt, and that's a sign. All black, you see that? No, it's meant to be. So, all black. That's what it's all about. Thank you, brother. Thank you for your support.
Yeah, big up COE.
Big up COE.
Everybody the same. In the name of the